Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Amna Sajid and today we are going to discuss acid-base balance. So there are two lectures on the topic of acid-base balance. First lecture we will discuss today and the next lecture will be uploaded in a few days time. So these are the learning objectives. Please have a look at these and then we will proceed. Okay, before discussing acid-base balance and the different components that are a part of acid-base balance in our body, I am going to revise a few terminologies and a few concepts that are going to help you in the understanding of acid-base balance. So first of all, what are acids? Acids are those chemical species that are able to donate H positive ions or protons. So acids can release protons. And what are bases? Bases are those chemical species which are able to accept protons or which are able to bind with protons. So what are strong acids and strong bases? Strong acids and bases are those chemical species which are able to 100% dissociate inside an aqueous medium. So they dissociate completely and quite rapidly in an aqueous medium. An example of strong acid is hydrochloric acid. Sulfuric acid is also a strong acid which dissociates completely in water. And examples of strong bases are potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide. So what are weak acids and bases? In contrast to strong acids and bases, these weak acids and bases dissociate incompletely in an aqueous medium and they also dissociate quite slowly. So examples of weak acids is carbonic acid, and ammonium hydroxide is an example of a weak base. So the main difference between strong acids and bases and weak acids and bases is the degree of dissociation. Strong acids and bases are able to dissociate completely and rapidly in an aqueous medium, whereas weak acids and bases dissociate very slowly and incompletely in an aqueous medium. So are acids produced in the body? The answer to this question is yes. As you know, different metabolic processes are taking place in different parts of the body, as a result of which both volatile and fixed acids are continuously being produced inside our body. So what is meant by volatile acids and fixed acids? Volatile acids, as the term suggests, are those acids which are present in gaseous form. For example, carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is continuously produced in our body as a result of respiration, and this carbon dioxide is an example of volatile acid, and which is present in the form of gas, and it can be removed from the body via lungs. So what are fixed acids? Fixed acids are the opposite of volatile acids. These are not gaseous in nature and they cannot be removed from the body via lungs. So fixed acids, there are many examples of fixed acids that are produced in different metabolic reactions taking place in our body. For example, lactic acid, phosphoric acid, sulfuric acid, and ketone bodies such as acetoacetic acid and hydroxybutyric acid are also examples of fixed acids. So the point to remember is that in our body, as a result of different metabolic processes, different types of acids are being produced, and these acids contribute towards lowering of pH of different body fluids. So in our body, there needs to be some mechanism that is going to resist the change in pH which results from the continuous production of different volatile and fixed acids, and these mechanisms form the basis of acid-base balance in our body that we are going to discuss in detail in the lectures on acid-base balance. So what is meant by pH? We use the term pH quite regularly in biochemistry. So what is meant by pH? pH is basically the negative log of hydrogen ion concentration. So pH is a means of expressing hydrogen ion concentration. And why do we use pH to express hydrogen ion concentration? Because normally the concentration of hydrogen ions inside our body fluids is very low, so it is more convenient to express this concentration in the terms of pH. And pH is the negative log of hydrogen ion concentration, and there is an inverse relationship between pH and hydrogen ion concentration. What does that mean? It means that lower the pH, higher the concentration of hydrogen ions, and higher the pH, lower the concentration of hydrogen ions. So a low pH value means a high concentration of hydrogen ions, and a high pH value means low concentration of hydrogen ions. That is why we say that pH and hydrogen ion concentration have an inverse relationship. And the point to remember from biochemical as well as your examination point of view is that a unit change in pH means a 10-fold change in hydrogen ion concentration. So if for example we say that pH has dropped from 7 to 6, then it means that the hydrogen ion concentration has increased 10 times. Similarly, if we say that pH has increased from a value of 6 to 7, this means that hydrogen ion concentration has dropped 10 times. So this is a very important point that you should remember. So this slide shows a very important equation known as Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, and it shows that pH of a medium is equal to pKa plus log of the ratio of concentration of base to the concentration of acid in a buffer system. You have studied this equation before. We will discuss it later in quite more detail later in the lecture, but right now you need to understand what is meant by pKa. So pKa is the dissociation constant of an acid, and what is meant by dissociation constant? It is the concentration it is the pH at which half or 50% of the acid is present in dissociated form, and it is a constant value. So the pH value at which half of the acid will be present in dissociated form will be known as dissociation constant of that acid, and it has a constant value. So in a buffer system, the pH is determined by the concentration of the basic element of that buffer system and the acidic element of the buffer system. As you can see in this equation, A negative represents the basic component as it is able to bind with a proton, and HA represents the acidic component which because it is able to donate or release a hydrogen ion or proton. So the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation is pH of the medium is equal to pKa plus log of the ratio of basic components concentration to acidic components concentration. As pKa is a constant, so this pH will be dependent upon this ratio. So this is a revision of the same constant of the same concept. Dissociation constant of an acid is the pH at which half of the acid is present in dissociated form. And another point to emphasize is that a buffer system is more powerful or more efficient when the dissociation constant of the acid is closer to the pH of the environment. So this slide shows the pH of different body fluids. As you can see, the pH of arterial blood is normally maintained at 7.40, and the pH of venous blood and interstitial fluid is maintained at 7.35. So this slightly lower value of pH of venous blood as compared to arterial blood is due to the production of carbon dioxide as a result of cellular respiration. So this carbon dioxide which is produced inside the cells diffuses into the venous blood, and as it is a volatile acid, it contributes towards slight lowering of pH. So that is why venous blood has a slightly lower value of pH as compared to the arterial blood, and same is the case with interstitial fluid. Its value is slightly lower because of the presence of carbon dioxide. So the pH of intracellular fluid is usually maintained at 6.0 to 7.4, and this low value is also due to the production of different types of volatile and fixed acids inside different body cells. So the pH of urine is also variable. It can vary from 4.5 to 8.0, and the pH of urine is dependent upon the degree of excretion of hydrogen ions by the kidneys, and we will discuss this point later. So, as different variable amounts of hydrogen ions can be excreted by the kidneys depending upon the pH of extracellular fluid inside our body. So gastric juice, its pH is very low at 0.8 due to the presence of a very strong acid, hydrochloric acid, inside the stomach, because hydrochloric acid is being produced by parietal cells inside the stomach for digestion purposes. So that is why gastric juices have a very low pH, and usually it is maintained at 0.8. So why is it important to maintain plasma pH at a constant value? As you know, the different metabolic processes inside our body, almost all of them require some enzyme system for catalysis. So these different enzyme systems operate at a certain optimal pH, and for most of these systems, the optimal pH is around the physiologic pH, which is 7.35 to 7.45. So we need to maintain the pH of different plasma fluids at a certain value for different enzyme systems to work efficiently or to perform their function efficiently, because there is an optimal pH for every enzyme system at which they are functioning to their maximum efficiency. So if the pH of different body fluids starts changing due to the presence of different fixed and volatile acids inside the body, then that would be a very big problem, as different metabolic processes would not be able to take place normally due to inefficient enzyme systems. That is why we need some mechanisms inside the body that are going to resist changes in fluid pH, and these different mechanisms form the basis of acid base balance inside our body. So what are the components of acid base balance? There are three important systems which are involved in maintaining the acid base balance inside our body, and these include: number one, chemical buffer systems of the body, both intracellular and extracellular; number two, the respiratory system; number three, the renal mechanisms. So the chemical buffer systems, which we will discuss later, they are the first line of defense against changes in pH, and they act within seconds. So they act immediately to resist changes in pH. And the second line of defense against changes in pH are the lungs or our respiratory system, which include both ventilation plus the role of hemoglobin as a buffer. And this respiratory system comes into play within minutes and resist changes against pH. And the point to remember is that the chemical buffer systems and the respiratory system, they perform a sort of temporary buffering against changes in pH, and these changes are not long term or they are not permanent. The permanent line of defense against pH changes are the kidneys or the renal mechanisms, which come into play over a period of hours to several days, and it is not only the most powerful of acid based regulatory system, but it is also long lasting and permanent. So first of all, we are going to discuss the chemical buffer systems of the body. Buffers, you have learned before, are mixtures whose different elements are able to reversibly bind with hydrogen ions, or they are able to reversibly release hydrogen ions according to the need of the body, and in this way these buffer systems can resist changes in pH, both lowering of pH and rise in pH. These changes can be resisted by different buffer systems inside our body. And buffer can also be defined as a substance which can reversibly bind hydrogen ions, as can be shown in this equation. So whenever, for example, in a body fluid or a body compartment, hydrogen ion concentrations start to rise, then a chemical buffer will come into play and it will sequester these hydrogen ions and remove them from the body fluid, resulting in the formation of H buffer. So this is how different buffer systems work. This is a very simplified way of representing the function of a buffer system. So the buffers in our body can be classified into intracellular buffers and extracellular buffers. And as you can see, the intracellular buffers include two important buffer systems. First of all, phosphate buffer system, and secondly, protein buffer systems, the proteins, the different proteins which are present inside the cells. And this is a very important intracellular buffer system because a large quantity of proteins are present inside different cells. So the extracellular buffers include protein buffer system and carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system. So the extracellular protein buffer systems include hemoglobin buffer system and amino acid buffer system plus plasma proteins buffer system. Plasma proteins, as you know, are present inside the plasma, and the most powerful of these extracellular buffer systems is the carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system. And why is it the most efficient and the most powerful extracellular buffer system, we will discuss later. So first of all, we are going to discuss the bicarbonate buffer system, which we just mentioned that it is an extracellular buffer system. And why is it very powerful? This is because the two elements of this buffer system can be regulated by the lungs and the kidneys. So what does this buffer system consist of? It consists of a weak acidic element in the form of carbonic acid and a bicarbonate salt such as sodium bicarbonate, and this bicarbonate ion in the salt is basically acting as a base, as bicarbonate ion is able to bind with a hydrogen ion. So the two elements of the bicarbonate buffer system are carbonic acid, which represents the acidic element, and the bicarbonate ion, which represents the basic element. And the carbonic acid in the form of carbon dioxide can be regulated by the lungs, and the bicarbonate ion, which is the basic element, it can be regulated by the kidneys. We will discuss this later, but right now for your understanding I am mentioning that carbon dioxide, which is a volatile acid, it can combine with water to form carbonic acid, and this carbonic acid is the acidic element of bicarbonate buffer system. And this carbon dioxide, it can be removed from the body via lungs, or it can be retained inside the body by decreasing ventilation rate according to the needs of the body. So whenever there is increased concentration of hydrogen ions inside the body, then more carbon dioxide can be exhaled out of the lungs, and this results in decrease in hydrogen ion concentration or decrease in acidic concentration inside the body. But whenever there is a decrease in hydrogen ion concentration and more acid needs to be retained inside the body, then the ventilation rate can be decreased, resulting in retention of carbon dioxide. So in this way, carbon dioxide concentration inside the body can be regulated via the lungs, and it can contribute to acid base balance. Similarly, the bicarbonate ion, its concentrations can be regulated by the kidneys. So whenever there is requirement of more base inside the body, then bicarbonate reabsorption from the kidneys will increase, and whenever there is decreased requirement for a base or bicarbonate in the body, then bicarbonate reabsorption from the kidneys will decrease. So this regulation of bicarbonate ions by the kidneys also help in maintaining acid base balance of the body. And because of this fact that the acidic and the basic components of the bicarbonate buffer system can be regulated by the lungs and the kidneys respectively, because of this fact bicarbonate buffer system is a very important buffer system in the body. So now I am going to explain the different elements of bicarbonate buffer system. So please pay attention to the first reaction, as it is a very important reaction. In this reaction, carbon dioxide combines with water to form carbonic acid, which is a weak acid, and it is the acidic element of this buffer system. And this reaction occurs in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. Moreover, this reaction is a reversible reaction, which means that it can proceed both in the forward as well as in the backward direction, but only in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. And this enzyme is present in different body cells such as the erythrocytes and renal tubular cells, etc. So why is this reaction very important? Because this reaction shows that the acidic component of this buffer system can either be carbonic acid, or we can also take carbon dioxide as the acidic component of this buffer system, because carbon dioxide is ultimately going to react with water and form carbonic acid. So when we talk about the acidic element of bicarbonate buffer system, we can either say carbon dioxide or we can also say carbonic acid. So carbonic acid, as it is a weak acid, it can dissociate weakly into hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions, but this dissociation is not complete, or it is not 100%. That is why carbonic acid is a weak acid. And the salt, which is also a component of bicarbonate buffer system, is usually sodium bicarbonate, and sodium bicarbonate can dissociate into sodium ions and bicarbonate ions, and this bicarbonate ion is basically the basic element of this buffer system, because it is a negatively charged ion and it can combine with hydrogen ions. So carbonic acid or carbon dioxide is the basic element of this system, and bicarbonate ion represents the basic component of this system. And if we combine all these reactions, we get carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of carbonic anhydrase form carbonic acid, which can dissociate into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. And carbonic acid or carbon dioxide represent the basic element of this system, and this bicarbonate these are the acidic component of this system, and the bicarbonate ion is the basic component of this system, as it can combine with hydrogen ion to form carbonic acid. And this bicarbonate ion can also combine with sodium ion to form the salt sodium bicarbonate. So how does this buffer system work? So when a strong acid is added to this buffer system, for example, when HCl is added to the bicarbonate buffer system, then HCl will dissociate completely to form hydrogen ions plus chloride ions, and these hydrogen ions will result in significant lowering of pH. But how does this lowering of pH is resisted by the bicarbonate system? The basic element of the bicarbonate system, which is the bicarbonate ion, comes into play and it combines with hydrogen ions, thus removing hydrogen ions from the medium, resulting in the formation of a weak acid called carbonic acid. And this weak acid dissociates very weakly or poorly into form a very small quantity of hydrogen ions, which results in only slight lowering of pH. So the significant lowering of pH that would have occurred if these hydrogen ions would have stayed inside the medium, that lowering of pH is resisted by the basic element, which is the bicarbonate ion of the bicarbonate buffer system. And this bicarbonate ion combines with hydrogen ions to form carbonic acid, which is a very weak acid and which results in only slight lowering of pH. Moreover, this carbonic acid in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme can be converted to carbon dioxide and water, and this carbon dioxide can be removed from the body via lungs. So this is how the bicarbonate buffer system resists a lowering in pH. So what happens when a strong base is added to the bicarbonate buffer system? As you can see in this equation, when sodium hydroxide, a strong base, is added to the bicarbonate buffer system, then the carbonic acid element of the system comes into play, resulting in the formation of sodium bicarbonate and water. So the hydroxyl ion, which is a very strong base, is sequestered by the H positive ion of carbonic acid, resulting in the formation of water, and the resulting chemical species and the remaining chemical species combine with each other to form sodium bicarbonate ion. In this way, a rise in pH is resisted by the bicarbonate buffer system. So this slide shows the representation of bicarbonate buffer system in the form of Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. And you do not need to go into much detail, you just need to remember that the pKa of carbonic acid is 6.1, which is a constant value. And this equation shows that the pH of the medium where the bicarbonate buffer system is present is dependent upon the ratio of bicarbonate ion concentration and the concentration of the acidic component of the buffer system, which can be represented by either carbonic acid concentration or the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. And when we use partial pressure of carbon dioxide in this equation, then it needs to be multiplied by 0.03. But if we are using the concentration of carbonic acid in this equation, then we do not need to multiply it by 0.03. I hope it is clear. Once again I am repeating, this equation shows that the pH of the medium where bicarbonate buffer system is present depends upon the ratio of bicarbonate ion concentration and carbonic acid concentration. So the ratio of basic component to the acidic component is important in maintaining the pH of the medium. So in order to maintain the normal physiologic pH inside a body, which is 7.35 to 7.45, the ratio of bicarbonate ion to carbonic acid concentration should be 20:1. If this ratio is disturbed, then it would lead to disturbance in pH of our body fluids. So now we are going to discuss the phosphate buffer system. Phosphate buffer system is an intracellular buffer system, and in addition to buffering intracellular fluids, it is also a very important buffering system inside renal tubular cells, which we will discuss in more detail when discussing renal mechanisms of acid base balance. So the point to remember is that phosphate buffer system plays a major role in buffering renal tubular fluid and intracellular tubular fluid, and the two components or the two elements of this system are H2PO4 negative or dihydrogen phosphate, which represents the acidic element of this system, and HPO4 2 negative or monohydrogen phosphate, which represents the basic element of this buffer system. So H2PO4 negative is able to donate or release a proton, whereas HPO4 2 negative is able to accept or bind with the proton. That is why this is basic and this is the acidic component of phosphate buffer system. So how does this phosphate buffer system work? So what happens when a strong acid such as HCl is added to the phosphate buffer system? So when HCl will be added to a medium which contains phosphate buffer system, then Na2HPO4, as you can HPO4 is the basic element of the system. So HPO4 to negative will combine with H positive ion, resulting in the formation of dihydrogen phosphate, and NaCl will also be formed. So HCl will react with Na2HPO4 to form NaH2PO4 plus NaCl. So in a nutshell, what is happening, the H positive ions from HCl will be sequestered by HPO4, which is the basic element of phosphate buffer system, resulting in the formation of H2PO4, which is a very weak acid, which means that it dissociates very weakly to release hydrogen ions. So a large change in pH has been resisted by the formation of a weak acid. So what will happen if a strong base such as sodium hydroxide is added to the phosphate buffer system? So the hydroxyl ion, which is basically acting as the base, as this hydroxyl ion will be hydroxyl ion is the basic component as it combines with hydrogen ions. So this hydroxyl ion will be sequestered by a hydrogen ion from H2PO4, resulting in the formation of H2O. So hydroxyl ion from NaOH and a proton from NaH2PO4 will combine to form H2O, and in this way the strong base will be removed from the medium, resulting in very slight increase in pH. So the phosphate buffer system is able to maintain the normal physiologic pH, which ranges from 7.35 to 7.45, only when the basic component of this system is 4 times the concentration of the acidic component. So the ratio of concentration of monohydrogen phosphate to dihydrogen phosphate should be 4:1. Only then phosphate buffer system will be able to maintain the normal physiological pH. So in our body, this ratio for phosphate buffer system is maintained. For the bicarbonate buffer system, the ratio of base to acidic component was 20:1, and for phosphate buffer system it is 4:1, and this is a very important point from both biochemical and from your examination point of view. So you should remember these ratios. So proteins, which all act both as intracellular as well as extracellular buffer system. How do they act as buffers? As you know that proteins contain amino acids which can be negatively charged or positively charged, and these different charged amino acids can either bind with hydrogen ions or they can release protons. So in this way they can act as buffers both inside the cells and outside the cells according to the requirement. So if hydrogen ion concentration increases, then the negatively charged acids can combine with hydrogen ions, and by removing these hydrogen ions from the medium, pH of the medium or the environment will be maintained. And in the same way, if protons need to be added to the medium or to the fluid where these proteins are acting as buffers, then different amino acids can also release hydrogen ions, and in this way different proteins can act as buffers both inside the cells and outside the cells. And an example of a protein acting as a buffer is hemoglobin, and different intracellular proteins and plasma proteins, they also act as buffers because they comprise of negatively charged and positively charged amino acids. So now we are going to discuss the role of hemoglobin as a buffer system in detail. As you can see in this diagram, these are the tissues and these are the lungs, the alveolar spaces inside the lungs, and this is an RBC in the vicinity of body tissues, and this is an RBC in the vicinity of alveoli. So what is happening here? Carbon dioxide is being produced as a result of cellular respiration, and this carbon dioxide will diffuse out of the body cells, will enter the interstitial space and then the venous blood, and carbon dioxide is able to cross the red blood cell membrane and enter the red blood cells, and once inside the cells it is going to combine with water in the presence of carbonic anhydrase to form carbonic acid. So carbonic anhydrase enzyme is present inside red blood cells, and it is going to catalyze the formation of carbonic acid from carbon dioxide and water, and this carbonic acid is going to dissociate into bicarbonate ions and hydrogen ions, and hydrogen ions are going to be taken up or sequestered by hemoglobin, which is also present inside RBCs, and this hemoglobin is also going to combine directly with some of the carbon dioxide that has entered the RBC to form carbaminohemoglobin. So this hemoglobin is going to transport H positive ions that have resulted from carbon dioxide and some of the carbon dioxide in the form of carbaminohemoglobin from the venous blood to the lungs, and from there carbon dioxide is going to be exhaled out of the lungs. How? We will discuss right now. So hemoglobin inside the RBCs is acting as a buffer mechanism because it is also buffering hydrogen ions and also carbon dioxide, which is a volatile acid. So I am going to repeat once again what happens. Carbon dioxide being produced inside the body cells is going to enter the RBC, where it is going to convert into carbonic acid in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme, and carbonic acid is going to dissociate into bicarbonate ion and hydrogen ions, and these hydrogen ions are going to be sequestered by hemoglobin present inside the red blood cells, and this hemoglobin is also going to combine directly with some of the carbon dioxide which entered the RBC to form carbaminohemoglobin. So now this carbon dioxide in the form of hydrogen ions and carbaminohemoglobin is going to be transported to the lungs, where carbon dioxide will be removed from the body. So another point to emphasize here is that this bicarbonate ion is being formed, resulting in increased concentration of bicarbonate inside the RBCs. So this bicarbonate ion is going to diffuse out of the cell and enter the plasma, and as carbonate ion enters the plasma, one chloride ion is going to enter the RBC, and this is known as chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomenon, and this Hamburger phenomenon is important for maintaining the electric balance of the plasma. So if one negatively charged ion has entered the plasma, then one negative charged ion will have to be removed from the plasma, and this is achieved via chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomenon, as one chloride ion enters the RBC and leaves the plasma. So what happens when this red blood cell enters the lungs? So once inside the lungs, the bicarbonate ion is going to move in the opposite direction. Here it was leaving the RBC and entering the plasma, but once inside the lungs, bicarbonate ion is going to leave the plasma and diffuse inside the red blood cells, and because bicarbonate ion concentration here is greater than the RBC. So once bicarbonate ion enters the RBC, it is going to combine with hydrogen ion, and this hydrogen ion is going to be released from hemoglobin, because hemoglobin now is going to combine with oxygen. So hemoglobin is going to release hydrogen ions, which are going to combine with bicarbonate ions to form carbonic acid, which will be converted to carbon dioxide and water by carbonic anhydrase enzyme, and this carbon dioxide will diffuse inside the alveolar spaces and exhaled out of the lungs. So in this way, hemoglobin has acted as a buffer. And also carb aminohemoglobin that was formed by the direct combination of carbon dioxide with hemoglobin, it will also be broken down into carbon dioxide and hemoglobin, and that carbon dioxide would be exhaled out of the lungs. So this is how hemoglobin is acting as a buffering mechanism, as it sequesters hydrogen ions here and carbon dioxide, and it releases hydrogen ions and carbon dioxide, which are ultimately going to be removed from the body in the form of carbonic acid. And another point to remember is that bicarbonate ion which entered the RBC in the lungs, it was coupled with the exit of one chloride ion from the RBC, and this is also known as chloride shift or a Hamburger's phenomenon, but here it is occurring in the reverse direction, and this is all to maintain the electric balance of the plasma. So this picture once again depicts the chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomenon, and this phenomenon is important for maintaining the electric balance of the plasma. So what happens at the level of peripheral capillaries or in the vicinity of tissues? Bicarbonate ion which was formed inside the RBCs, it leaves the RBC and it is coupled with the entry of one chloride ion into the RBC, as one negatively charged ion enters the plasma, another negatively charged ion leaves the plasma, so that the electric balance inside the plasma is maintained. Similar mechanism occurs in the lungs, but it occurs in the reverse direction. Now inside the lungs, bicarbonate ions move inside the RBC coupled with the exit of chloride ion out of the RBC. So one negatively charged ion leaves the plasma and another negatively charged ion enters the plasma to maintain electric balance. So that was all about the role of proteins and hemoglobin as a buffer system. Now we are going to discuss the second line of defense against acid-base changes, and that is the respiratory regulation of acid-base balance. So the respiratory regulation comes into play within minutes, and it can be operational up to a few hours, and it is also a temporary mechanism, and it serves to resist change in pH until the renal mechanisms come to play, which are long term and permanent, and they are the most powerful of all the acid base regulatory mechanisms. So how does the respiratory system act as a regulator of acid base balance? It does so by controlling the extracellular concentration of carbon dioxide, or in other words, it controls the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So whenever there is an increase in hydrogen ion concentration inside the plasma, then more carbon dioxide is removed from the body via exhalation in the lungs. And whenever there is a drop in hydrogen ion concentration, or whenever there is a requirement of more acid inside the body, then carbon dioxide will be retained inside the body by decreasing its removal via lungs. So an increase in ventilation eliminates carbon dioxide from the extracellular fluid, which reduces hydrogen ion concentration. How? Because whenever there is an increase in plasma hydrogen ion concentration, then this results in an increase in ventilation rate. And when ventilation rate of the lungs is increased, then more carbon dioxide leaves the body and it is exhaled out of the lungs. And how does this serve to decrease the hydrogen ion concentration inside the plasma? Because if carbon dioxide was not removed and if it stayed in the plasma, then it would have combined with water in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme to form carbonic acid, which would have dissociated into H positive ions and bicarbonate ions. So if carbon dioxide is removed from the plasma, then it would not result in the formation of these hydrogen ions, and the pH of the plasma would not be lowered. So if carbon dioxide elimination from the body is increased by increased ventilation rate, then it can result in an increase in pH or in lowering of hydrogen ion concentration. So whenever there is an increased concentration of hydrogen ions inside the plasma, it results in increased ventilation rate, which removes carbon dioxide from the body. And a decrease in ventilation rate happens when there is lower concentration of hydrogen ions, or when the pH of the plasma is increased. So when the pH is increased, then there is a need to lower that pH, and this is achieved by decreasing ventilation rate, because when ventilation rate is decreased, less amount of carbon dioxide will be removed from the lungs, and that carbon dioxide which is retained inside the body, it would result ultimately in the formation of hydrogen ions, and that would lower the pH. So in other words, to summarize, we can say that hydrogen ion concentration regulates the rate of alveolar ventilation. So when there is increased hydrogen ion concentration, ventilation rate would be increased to remove carbon dioxide from the body. And whenever there is reduced plasma hydrogen ion concentration, then ventilation rate will be reduced in order to retain carbon dioxide inside the body, because this carbon dioxide will ultimately result in hydrogen ion formation, and that would result in maintaining the pH of the plasma. So generally the respiratory control of hydrogen ion concentration is about 50 to 75% effective in resisting pH change, and the buffering power of the respiratory system is 1 to 2 times that of the extracellular chemical buffers. So the respiratory mechanisms are slightly more powerful in buffering hydrogen ions as compared to the chemical buffer systems, which are the intracellular and extracellular buffer systems inside our body. So this was all about the chemical buffer systems and the respiratory mechanisms of acid-base balance. In the next lecture, we will be discussing the renal mechanisms of acid-base balance, plus we will also discuss acidosis and alkalosis in detail. So thank you very much. If you have any queries regarding this lecture, you can mail me. Best of luck from my side. Allah Hafiz.